Hey everybody, it's Christian Winters. Now I'm coming to you from by the Sea of Tiberius. Um, it's about 20 miles, 30 miles, maybe 40 from Jerusalem. So I'll be in Tiberius for a few days. Today was a wonderful day, and I learned a lot again. Went to Capernum where Jesus lived, and I went to the place where he fed the 5,000. Also went to Peter's house, and it was wonderful that it was a Catholic church that actually built a new church right on top of Peter's house, which they say was the first church. Um, I actually put an offering in this basket that was there, and in my mind, I really felt like I was sowing that seed in that box for many of you who have hopes and dreams. They say it was the first of the churches in Acts, and so I figure if I sow a seed in the first church, then the Lord will bless all of your churches. So all of you that have been sick and been worried and been wondering, I sowed a seed for you today, whether I know your name or I don't. I definitely didn't feel like I sowed it for myself. I had a mind really to really, that the Lord would really open up big doors. But I've been looking for God's leading on what I want to talk to you all about. And so every day I just look for this one little clue. And today it just hit me. It was a big clue. It just punched me in the face type of clue. I was talking to a Jewish man today whose family had been through Holocaust, and he was talking about suffering. And I mean, it almost brought me to tears, the things he was saying concerning suffering. And on the bus ride back to Tiberius, where I am now, I start thinking about suffering, and something really hit my mind. That suffering is not really not having money or not having a nice home. It's a lot of things we call suffering that aren't really suffering. I realized today that suffering is living a life with no meaning. Because as hard as this man's story was, he told it proudly. And truly him and his family had suffered for years. But he told it with such pride, which really clued me in that as bad as that was, and many of us have never seen a day like that, but we claim that we suffer. And I realized that in that moment, that man had meaning to his life. So as tough as his story was to tell, he had so much meaning attached to it. So I think we've misdefined, or I don't know if that's a word, but we haven't defined properly what suffering is. Suffering is not what you have or don't have. Suffering is living a life that has no meaning to it. And so I saw this stuff, and I jumped off the bus, and I looked at this bush, and I broke a piece of it off. I tweeted about it earlier, and it poked my hand. And I asked the man what this was. He said it was this stuff called SiSi Foos. And SiSi Foos means to suffer life with no meaning. And that's what the bush meant, SiSi Foos. And then I found out that this was the same exact bush that they made the crown of thorns that they pushed into Jesus' head that made him gush blood from his head. And then I said, I know exactly what I'm putting in lesson 3. And it hit me. Here's Jesus took SiSi Foos, suffering life with no meaning, and they weaved it together and made a crown of thorns, and they pressed it down his head. Here he is, wearing the suffering of life with no meaning into his life that had so much meaning, pressed into his life that had so much meaning. And then tears came to my eyes because I realized that here's this man that had life with so much meaning, took SiSi Foos, wrapped it around his head, pushed it in his head for people like us whose lives had no meaning. And then he took on that suffering to give our lives meaning. So what's salvation? It's not what church folks say it is. It's not choirs and robes and preachers and revivals and offerings and false prophets and church services, Bentleys and all the stuff that we claim it is. It's really, how do I take on suffering and learn that my life has meaning to it? But Jesus did it for me. I couldn't do it myself. There's no way any of us would have took SiSi Foos on our head especially when we were not guilty. But his love caused him to take a life that had purpose, take on our lives that had no purpose, and give us life that has purpose. I think we owe God a lot more than we give him. I think we owe God a lot more of everything than we give him. If anything, I want you to do tonight is really say I'm sorry to our Creator, our Savior. Because the truth is, your life had no meaning. His had much. But he took on something he didn't deserve. SiSi Foos, the life that had no meaning, so you can have a life that has much meaning. So I say to you today, the suffering servant came to suffer for the world to make us honorable servants. You can, you will. I love you. I'm going to bed. It's nighttime. It's your afternoon, not mine. You can, you will. I love you. Christian winners. SiSi Foos. Deuces.